Oh, good to see you. Just up the road, about 10-minute drive, there's Mandroy Falls. It's incredible. Let's get some fruit and check it out. All right, rock and roll. This hill, we'll head into the rainforest, Wooranoora National Park. Yeah, mate, it's amazing. All right, team, let's do it. Giddy, mate. How's that for a root? Like, feel that, how strong that is.
Fellow councillors, staff and residents viewing via live stream, good morning all and welcome. I acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of the land on which this meeting is being held and pay my respect to the elders past, present and emerging. We now call on Pastor Mark Dewar to deliver the opening prayer. Mark.
So just as I begin, let me share with you a passage of scripture that has shaped my leadership of the Cassowary Coast Uniting Church in Innisfail, Tully and Mission Beach and my role in the community. It says this, for by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourselves more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourselves with sober judgment in accordance with the measure of faith that God has given you. Just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not have all the same function, so in Christ we who are many form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given us. If a person's gift is prophesying, let them use it in proportion to their faith. If it is serving, let them serve. If it is teaching, let them teach. If it is encouraging, let them encourage. If it is contributing to the needs of others, let them give generously. If it is leadership, let them govern diligently. If it is showing mercy, let them do it cheerfully. No doubt these verses are directed towards the church, but I believe they speak into your roles as well as elected and appointed officials in our region. So let us pray. Lord God, your Spirit has moved over the face of Australia and formed from its dust a rolling brown land. Your Spirit has moved over its warm tropical waters and created a rich variety of life. Your Spirit has moved in the lives of men and women and children to give them an affinity with this country and brought them to a place of freedom and plenty. Your Spirit moves today in our towns and villages, in the diverse region we call the Cassowary Coast. This place we call home is a gift to us. Lord, there is much of which we are proud. Its diversity, its cultures, its festivals, its shows, the success stories, the events, the resilience and tenacity of the people. Yet, Lord, we know that there is so much more to do. Lord, I pray that these men and women, our elected leaders, may be able to put aside personal agendas, political ambition, and the capacity to wield power so that they may, right here and now, continue to prove faithful with the trust that has been given to them. That they may continue to govern with diligence, continue to be trustworthy leaders that they are for the sake of the region we all love. Lord, I lift these men and women up to you now, and I thank you for their God-given capacity and willingness to be courageous leaders. I ask that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, and personal peace in their lives and joy in their task. I pray, Lord, for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you to them, that they would benefit those who would live and work in and around the region here on the coast. In the name of the one who came to save and set free all of humanity, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Thanks, mate. Do we have any apologies? Take that as a no. Move on to the declaration of conflicts. Thanks, Pastor. Councillors, please use this opportunity to make public any prescribed conflict of interest or declarable conflict of interest in respect of the items in the agenda. Councillors should use this opportunity to disclose and or comment on other councillors and or staff interests in accordance with the Act and the regulations. Are there any conflicts to declare? No? Okay, thank you. We move on to item 1 on the agenda, confirmation of minutes. Item 1.1, page 3. Would somebody move that the minutes from the meeting on the 8th of July 2021 are a true and accurate record, please? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Move on to item 2. Any business arising from those minutes? Councillor Barnes.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and everybody. 2.3, Mr. Mayor, after a lot of pressure from the parents, school bus drivers, concerned constituents, crocodile traps have finally been set in that problem, and the government bodies finally saw wisdom, and there was a big concern over the size of the crocodiles in question. I think any crocodile in question around children, around bus stops, should be taken very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Any further business arising? I have a couple here. Page 8, the possibility of heritage listing the igloo. Councillor Mill, would you raise that matter? Has that been taken back to their committee as an action from them? Because council won't be actioning that. It's up to the committee.
Through the chair, no, I haven't had any contact with any community group or anybody to alert me to the fact that that is happening. So okay. I'm sorry, but
no,
I have nothing.
No, yep. Thank you for that. And I'd like to call on the CEO to deliver an update, please, on page 12, the 30-day action plan that was implemented by the state government. Port Hinchinbrook.
Port Hinchinbrook, yep. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor. Councillors will recall that you and I gave advice that we met with the member for Hinchinbrook, Mr. Nick Meadow, and a number of representatives of state government from local government, state development, treasury and so on a little while ago. Since then, the council's team has been meeting on a rapid fire basis, quite frankly. We're sometimes meeting daily with various representatives from the state government with skills in finance, engineering, law and local government. And I believe that we're in a very sound position. I can't go into the exact details of it because these are still commercial in confidence without prejudice discussions, but they're maturing very well. And I think particularly the one that we had on Monday established some excellent principles and ground rules, which we'll now be pursuing with quite some vigour, Mr. Mayor. So I'm very optimistic, and well, I'm more than optimistic. I'm very confident, and I'm very happy with the progress that we've made, Mr. Mayor.
So thank you, Mr. CEO. The 30-day title was placed on that plan by the state government, so we're on track.
I believe we're on track now, Mr Mayor. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Any further business arising?
Through you, Mr Mayor, Mr Goodman has been very active in those discussions. Mr Goodman, did you want to add anything to what I've just said? Bearing in mind that we can't, no, that's about the size of it, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. No further business arising. We move on to item 3, Governance, Environment and Finance. Item 3.1, page 25, Expressions of Interest, LGAQ representative on the Queensland Heritage Council. And the CEO will present this report.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through you, Mr Mayor, the Local Government Association of Queensland is calling for expressions of interest from councillors and elected members for representation on the Queensland Heritage Council. Queensland Heritage Council was established pursuant to the Heritage Act in the early 90s, in 92 I think, and through you, Mr Chairman, the Heritage Council of course stewards the way that regulations and so on are applied to heritage buildings and heritage sites throughout the state. It's excuse me, an initial term of 3 years, but no more than 6 years can be served. And through you, Mr Chairman, it's my recommendation that council appoint any councillor who might be interested in representation on the council, and as I understand it, Councillor Chewy is quite interested in this position.
Okay. Councillor Chewy.
Thank you. Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Mr CEO. I have in fact sent my letter in yesterday. It has been received, and I've had an acknowledgement of it being received. So I just wait to see if I'm successful in taking that position. But thank you all. It's something that I think I would really enjoy reading the profile, and it would be exciting. So thank you very much.
Any other councillors interested? Councillor Baines.
Through you, Mr Chair, I am still interested. I did express an interest early. I do only have to the close of business tomorrow, I believe, Councillor Chewy. So Councillor Chewy is going to provide me with some assistance today and get me over the line.
Get you over the line.
And
that's wonderful.
Further to that, Mr Mayor, I would move the recommendation.
Okay, it's moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 3.2, page 28, the policy review on curbside refuse collection, and Mr Hammond will present this report. Mr Hammond.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good morning, councillors. Today I've got a review of the curbside refuse collection policy, services policy. It's policy number DS002. It was adopted by council back in 2015. A review has been carried out just as a matter of good governance, and in that review some changes have been made to that policy. Those changes are inclusive of changing names of officers, changing the names of the department, changing the legislation which reflected the contemporary legislation that deals with waste, and the issue of the stealing of wheelie bins, where we had a statement in there that council would replace those bins. That particular line has been removed. So if a bin is stolen, it's like anything else that's stolen. It's the responsibility of the person who has control of that particular bin, and in this case, that would be the ratepayer who has that bin. So that's been changed. The maps at the back are still in two pieces, and the reason for that is the granularity of the maps is reduced if we put them into one map. So the two maps are still there, which will show very, very clearly what the defined waste services areas are. I'm happy to take comments on that. If there's no comments, I do recommend that council adopt the curbside refuse collection services policy updated.
Councillors, any questions for Mr Hammond? Councillor Baines.
Thank you, and through you, Mr Chair. Mr Hammond, I note in the policy there has been a piece written in around bins ought to be put back in a 24-hour or within 24 hours, because there is quite a contentious issue that's been going on in Valletta's estate for quite a few years. Yep. Will that allow our local laws officers some sort of scope, or some of your other officers some sort of scope to control it?
So this, thank you, councillor. This particular policy is an intention of council's view on how to deal with waste. That particular section you're referring to is in state legislation as well, which gives us the head of power to deal with that. Yeah.
Councillor Chewy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hammond. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just clarity on reading the report. I think it's really important that we try, and I know we have recently through our comms team, they work very hard, letting people know how, if by putting their bins so close together, it's impossible for the truck to do their thing. I drive past and I want to go and fix them up. I posted a Facebook post last year, and somebody referred to, I'll think of it like COVID, you know, you've got to be 1.5 metres apart. I don't know if there's a line there, but it's difficult for the truck to get their hooks around the bins, and I just think we really need to work hard to let that know. And also for people that do require additional collections, who do they ring customer service to arrange that? Yes. Okay.
So the answer to both your questions is the bin placement. We can actually add that to our media campaigns to make sure that message gets out.
I think the 1.5 thing is, you know, it's in everybody's head, so maybe we should utilise that. I don't know.
It's a valid comment, councillor. And the second issue, any issue with waste waste bins should be directed to our customer service number.
Councillor Millwood.
Yeah, so through the chair, just further to that, we have a new waste calendar that's should be out within the coming weeks, which has a lot of that general information about bins. And so if you're wishing to get one of those, you can also go to customer service where they will be available.
Any further questions for the officer? Could you just elaborate on the cost of a big bin, small bin replacement and what council is saving by changing the policy around the property owner being responsible for a stolen bin? Can you put that into context for us, please?
As much as I would love to, I don't have that data.
Haven't you? Okay.
What I can say is there is a number of complaints we get on a yearly basis around bins that are stolen. At the moment, before this recommendation is taken on board, those comments are sent to the police, and the police were telling me they had 32 outstanding complaints. This is information that's about 9 months old now. They had around about 32 outstanding complaints around stolen wheelie bins. And so if you look at the cost of that, it's quite substantial for police resources to go and track down lost wheelie bins. So that was one of the reasons, and one of the reasons why we've actually looked at taking that particular matter off.
Thanks for that explanation. Any further questions from Mr. Hammond? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Councillor Millwood moved, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Next item, 3.3, page 42, Finance Report, and Mr. Smith will present this report. Good morning, Mr. Smith.
Councillors, the Finance Report provides information on Council's year-to-date revenue and expenditure across all departments and programs. It also includes financial statistical data which highlights Council's operations. Please note that the amounts in this report, while they're at the end of the year, they are interim amounts at this point in time. The finance team are currently finalising end-of-year figures, and those finalised figures will be included in the audited financial statements, which will be available in October 2021 in line with audit milestones. Some of the key figures. So operational revenue for the year was $96.1 million, which is $556,000 under budget. Operational expenditure is finished at $97.4 million, which is $761,000 over budget. The end of year cash balance was $43.5 million, and capital expenditure for the year was $46.3 million, which represents 94%, including commitments of the budget program. The operating result for the year was a deficit of $1.3 million. On page 43, there's a table showing a summary of the financial results for the year. A list of the key variance explanations can be found on page 44. Some of the major items in that His interest revenue was under budget due to lower than expected interest rates on investments. Operating grants also under budget due to emergent works reimbursements that have not yet been received. These are expected to be recognised in the 21-22 financial year. Operating contributions also under budget due to the state no state contribution for Port Hinchinbrook sewage maintenance, and depreciation has been over budget, mainly in the areas of water, intangible assets, sewage and plant equipment. Details of Council's cash and investment holdings is at the bottom of page 44. Approximately 58% of Council's cash investment holdings was on call at an interest rate of 0.6%. Council officers continue to look for maximising returns in these low interest rate times, so that's continuing. Councillors, the recommendation is that the report be received and noted. Happy to take any questions, Mr Mayor.
Any questions for Mr Smith? If not, would somebody move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Millward. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Smith.
Okay, thank you.
Great work. Thanks, Mr Smith.
We now move on to item 4, asset sustainability. Item 4.1, page 57, CCRC capital report, and Mr Smith will present this report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, in the 2021 year, Council had 352 capital projects with a total budget of $49.6 million. At that time of preparing of this report, Council had expended $44.8 million of that budget, which is approximately 90% of the deliverable program. As noted in the previous financial report, end of financial year accruals and journals are still being processed. So as such, these figures in this current report will not reflect the final audited figures, so they'll be available in October, as mentioned earlier. Some of the projects that were completed since the last report are some energy efficiency upgrades. There's more projects on page 59. So the path renewal at Silkwood has been completed. A number of DRFA submissions were completed prior to the end of the year. Park furniture and playground equipment at various locations. Leachate management control systems at both Stodders Hill and Tully Landfill, and some sewage SCADA upgrades or renewals at some of our pumping stations. On page 60, the table with the major funding sources. So if I just run through some of those, with DRFA, apart from Upper Darragee Road, all DRFA submissions were physically complete. They will still need to have their acquittals done before we receive the final amounts of funding for those. The local roads and community infrastructure program is on track to be completed by the extension date of November. R2R, so Roads to Recovery program was completed and acquitted and received during the year. Works for Queensland, a couple of rounds with that. Most projects have been completed in that. There have been some extensions received for some community facilities and also caravan park programs within the Works for Queensland area. With the other projects that have been completed, those costs are being finalised and final acquittals will be lodged in the coming months. We have received additional TIDS funding for Cowley Beach and also Clifford Road recently. The Cowley Beach has been received. Clifford Road will, in the amount of $447,000, will be lodged with TMR shortly. Double Barrel Creek Bridge and Ann Road and Dalakey Road intersections were both completed, and funding has been received for those projects. South Mission Beach Path and Balliol Street is due to be completed in the coming financial year, 21-22, with a deadline of June 22. And the Bulgan Reservoir and Tully Showground grandstands projects were completed during the year, and all funding has been received for those. So, councillors, the recommendation is that council receive the report and acknowledge the status of the capital works projects managed by it. Happy to take any questions, Mr Mayor.
Questions for Mr Smith? Councillor Pervin.
Yeah, Mr. Smith, you may not be able to answer this one, probably more Mr. Goodman. In relation to Upper Darragee Road, it's set down for end of September to be completed. Are we on track for this, or do we look like going over?
Through the chair, Councillor Pervin, yes, it's on track for completion within the funding requirements this end of September.
What stage are we currently at with that?
The majority of the gravel is in place now. Certainly the earthworks are complete. There's slow down. A very significant risk to the project was getting the tram line component in, and that is all done. So there's some additional completion of gravel, base gravel and seal and tidy up is what's required on site.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, while we've got you there, Mr. Goodman, I've got a question for you about Schumann Road at Alarish. What works have been completed at that road for this stage?
I don't have any information on the on a capital project at Schumann Road. I do understand that there was some NDRRA project, a smaller project that was approved there, but I don't have the precise detail of what has been completed on that road at this stage. And but I'll have to chase the detail up and get back to you.
Councillor Chewy.
You're safe, Mr. Goodman. Thank you. Through the chair, thank you, I can't think. Regarding the shade sale of the pool, I got confused with Mr. Goodman sitting there. Just an update, please.
Yep, sure. Thank you, Councillor. My understanding is that steel fabrication for the pool shade is underway and is due back from the galvanisers next week sometime, and that steel reinforcements have also arrived in Cairns, and works will commence on site at the pool in early August.
Excellent, thank you. And just a shout out to the team that have worked hard to get Butterfly Park at South Mission up, tidied and cleaned and upgraded. It's been well received by community, so I'd just like to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chewy. Councillor Barnes.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, another question to Mr. Goodman. There must be a misprint here, Mr. Goodman, but McQuillan Road floodway project, it says the design is 90% completed, and it says the job's going to be completed in July 21. They haven't started that job. Must be a misprint.
Through the chair, yes, I think that would likely be a misprint.
Yeah. Any further questions for the officers? I have one for Mr. Smith. Page 61, the Hadrill Park CMCA Park for RVs, the turning lane. It indicates here that it's programmed to start on July and finish in August. How close are we to commencement of that project?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, through the chair, Hadrill Park, my understanding is that TMR approval has been given on the design drawings, and that the work crew is, there's a commitment to, that they're due to start on site on the 26th of July. Once they finish that's dependent on the Fitzgerald-Esplanade work that they're currently working on, that crew.
Thank you. We had the privilege of the official opening of the park this week, and officials that flew up from down south for the opening indicated that Hadrill Park RV facility is the most successful in the first month of operation of any of their parks in Australia. So it's been very well patronised. They're spending plenty of money. Every fortnight we've got a box there and we go and get the receipts and staff tally it up. So to the naysayers who said many times, don't accommodate the RV community because they don't spend, they definitely spend. They're terrific for our economy, and the park is an absolute asset to Cassowary Coast, being on Cancutta Way, no doubt. Any further questions for Mr. Smith? Councillor Pervin.
Mr. Smith, probably Mr. Goodman again. Just in relation to the capital report there, the River Drive Caravan Park has been completed, I see. It's open and full steam ahead. Have you got any ideas on what sort of takings the caravan park's taken since we've been open again at all, Mr. Goodman? That you could give us a quick rundown on?
Through the chair, yes I can. The River Drive Caravan Park has been back open now for close to 6 weeks, just over 6 weeks. I'll start again through the chair. So yes, I can confirm that River Drive Caravan Park in Innisfail has been open now for 6 weeks, and the data that we have had a look at it yesterday. We have received just over $25,000 in revenue from that site since opening. So started off a little slow in the first week, but it's just been going very well since. And anybody that's driving past that facility in the last month would see it's extremely well patronised.
Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, while we're on that subject, is there any line of sight to a date when the Tully Caravan Park may open?
Under the Works for Queensland extension, that was one of the projects that was given an extension approval, and the current deadline for that extension is September at this stage. Mr. Goodman may want to add further.
And if I can, through the chair, add Mr. McBride gave me an update this week, and it is on track for completion in September.
Any further questions for the officers? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Baines. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smart. Thank you. Item 4.2, page 73, revisions of the water supply and sewerage customer charter and service standards, and Mr. Smart will present this report.
Happy mood to that. Mr. Smart's in a happy mood.
Yeah. Morning, Mr. Smart.
Morning, councillors.
Morning, Mr. Smart.
Councillors, this item proposes to amend our customer charter. We are obliged as a water service provider to maintain customer service standards. The customer service standards are things that we have to report on annually, and some of our customer service standards relate to response times to incidents, and they reflect some of the important indicators such as water losses and sewage blockages, nuisances. There's no intent to change those customer service standards that we have to report on, so there's no obligation for us to advertise any changes. The proposal here is just to tweak some aspects of the charter, and the customer service standards are part of that charter. The elements that I'm proposing to change in the charter, some of them relate to the smart metering that we've been introducing, and I guess just some indication to ratepayers at what point they will get a leak notice. There's also some discussion about the change to the trade waste policy. A few years ago we introduced a system whereby the trade waste generator was issued with the permit, but the charges remained with the owner, the charter just needs to be amended to reflect some of that change. There's a couple of other things there, the mention of the backflow prevention policy, and I guess the last one is the introduction of the water supply scheme maps and reference to those. Also, as part of a water service provider, we have an obligation to maintain maps that ratepayers can see what areas we're agreeing to service. We have those in our drinking water quality management plan, but this is a more it's just more observant that if it's in our charter and it refers to the plan, they can find it there. There's also a mention of the sewer serviced area, which we're also obliged to keep maps of. As there's no changes to our customer service standards, and it's just amendments to the charter, the recommendations are that we adopt the changes to the charter. It's also recommended that we endorse the water service areas which are included as attachment 2 in the document. I don't think there's any other points that are particularly relevant. Once this is adopted, it'll go on our website, and the charter becomes our reference point. It's a reasonably significant document.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. Any questions for the officer? Councillor Chewy.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. It's probably more for the CEO, actually. In relation to customer service, I had a lady who spent several hours on the phone on the emergency number to report a leak. Once it was notified through email, our team responded very quickly to it, so there was no issue with that. The issue was with customer service. She sat there, and as did I when she reported it to me, so I just don't know. I'm hoping that we can improve that facility, Mr. CEO, especially as this lady was quite concerned about the water and the potential of charges and things like that. Thank you.
Yeah, through Mr. Chairman, thank you, Councillor Chewy. We are alive to the issue, and it's under review right now.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Smart? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 4.3, page 112, asset rationalisation process, and Mr. Acatino will present this report. Welcome.
Thank you. Morning all. So yeah, in front of you we have an update on our asset rationalisation process. So this is our implementation update. So we have been working really hard in this space and to progress the implementation of the asset rationalisation. In this report we have of the 32 assets that you've approved for rationalisation. This report highlights firms up their rationalisation approach for 13 of these assets. So we have progressed the discussions with the user groups, obviously utilising the policies that you've adopted for community use of assets, and a lot of those discussions have been going really well and progressing, making great progress. So we have a number of assets here, and there has been a couple of changes in 2 instances from the original recommendation that we adopted, and this was the Tully Girl Guides and the Marks Park Girl Guides. So we have had great discussions, and using those principles, we have changed the recommended approach. So we are offering a user agreement for those 2 clubs in the current buildings. As we've discovered more information, we've talked to them, and which is a great outcome. We're working with the groups and coming up with good outcomes, and that allows them to demonstrate their commitments and their and meeting those policies, which is good. And also we are working in other areas. We also have had discussions with TMR, the Transport and Main Roads, in regards to rest areas. So this is in addition to our asset rationalisation. So it's on page 115 of the report. We have had discussions about transferring ownership of the assets at the rest parks, which are a main roads. We see them as a main road service, and yet we have them as our assets in our register. So the discussions have been that we will transfer ownership back to main roads, and we will maintain them in accordance with our road maintenance policy that we have with them. So there will be a report coming to council soon in regards to that, once all that work has concluded for a recommendation. In the recommendation, there is a typo in there, so we want to do an amendment to the recommendation. So as I said, there are actually 13 assets that we are proposing. So if I just read out what we're suggesting. So the recommendation is that council, number one, supports the asset disposal via tender or auction of the following assets. So the demountable building, Marina Lakes, the old Tully VIC, the Cracker, Silkwood tennis courts and buildings, the employee housing, Innisfail Fishing Club, Mullins Hall, the Tipburn building and toilet block. And this is a proviso that we have provided Tully Pickleball 2-month extension to demonstrate their ability to commit to the community use of assets and the future use and pay and cover all liabilities. But if they cannot do that, then it will. We are still proposing disposal via tender or auction. The Tully Gem Club, and number two, to support the establishment of leases or user agreements over the following assets: the Innisfail Men's Shed, the Marillion Kindergarten, Tully Girl Guides, Innisfail Dance School Building, and the amendment is also Marks Park Girl Guides.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Goodman, you authorised that recommendation. Are you supportive of the amendment?
Through the chair, yes, I am.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Acatino? Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair. So I believe it is in the best interest of our community that the Cracker building and the igloo be removed from the list for further considerations, as the community has expressed interest in these buildings. An extension of time be granted for the groups to meet the required principles for the community to have the opportunity to apply for heritage listing for the igloo. In saying this, I fully appreciate the work done by our asset team and would like to express that the only contact with me as a divisional councillor has been with one group only. Further to that, I can only take action on issues in the community, for the community, with the information provided to me by the community, which has been very little to do with any of these issues. Thank you.
Councillor Millwood, are you moving a motion, are you?
Yes, I'd like to move that those two be removed at this point.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to second that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the way that would look is that the recommendation would be rejected, and council needs to record its reasons for rejection of the recommendation, and then an alternative resolution would need to be adopted. So there's two pieces to it. Firstly, that a resolution that the recommendation be rejected because of whatever the reasons are, and then an alternative resolution installed.
Councillor Baines, you want to say something?
Yeah, just further too, while we're stepping onto this, I believe that the pickleball has already been mentioned in this recommendation. So in effect, you're really only trying to add the Cracker for consideration as an extension.
Yes.
You're not trying to add the igloo back into it because it's already there.
It's already there.
You mentioned the igloo as well.
Yeah, I did mention the igloo, that's correct.
So just a reiteration.
So it's really to give an extension of time for a bit more consideration from the community groups. So,
okay, everybody understands the process the CEO's outlined. We'll put the recommendation to a vote. All in favour? We need a mover and a seconder. Who'll move it?
Trees is going to move and I'll second that.
No, CEO said we've got to deal with this one first. Will somebody move the recommendation as on our agenda?
So do I move, I move to reject the recommendation at this
If
point.
that's your intention, yeah. Through, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that very motion.
So you're moving to reject the recommendation?
Yes, I am.
I'll second that
Councillor
very motion.
Barnes is seconding it. Any further comments, councillors?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm assuming that the reasons that you're relying upon is in the narrative you provided earlier.
Correct.
Yeah.
In the community interest?
Yes.
Okay, for further time to negotiate?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, any further comments, councillors? All in favour? Okay,
So now, point of order, do we then put another motion forward? Okay,
Yes.
that's fine.
Councillor Mill, would you move your motion now, please?
So I would like to move the motion that within the recommendation that the Tully Igloo and the Cracker Building be removed on a basis for further community consultation and consideration.
Well, to revisit it, councillor Baines just highlighted the igloo's already been given
Yeah.
a reprieve. So can you reword it to just the Cracker, please?
So can we just add, I ask that in the community interest, can we also add the Cracker to the list of buildings that we can further negotiate and get further considerations and more community interest? Thank you.
That's been moved by councillor Millwood, seconded by councillor Barnes. Any further comments, councillors? All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Acatino.
Thank you.
We move on to item 5, planning services. Pardon? Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right. Planning services, item 5.1, page 119, material change of use for low impact industry auto electric, and Mr. Jones will present this report. Welcome, Mr. Jones.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Mr. Jones.
Through the chair, councillors received an application for material change of use by Mr. Ricky Bovey for the establishment of an auto electrics business within the rural zone on land described as Lot 1 RP 900-315, situated at 306 Innisfail Japoon Road, Mundu. It's noted that the auto electrics business has been operating on the site for a number of years with no complaints being received by council. The applicant seeks to formalise the use of the site. The proposed development involves a material change of use to allow a 200 square metre portion of the existing shed to be used to carry out an auto electrics business. The business will service a maximum of 10 cars per day. Access will be provided from Innisfail Japoon Road and car parking will be provided adjacent to the shed. The site is located within close proximity to 2 parcels of land with existing light industry use rights. The balance of the site outside of which the light industry use is proposed will continue to be used for agricultural activities such as sugarcane and a small orchard. The closest sensitive receptor is a residential dwelling which is located approximately 121 metres from the shed and is buffered by a remnant vegetation which is proposed to remain in sight. It is noted that the majority of properties within rural areas have a shed like this one which have been established when the farm was used for sugarcane cultivation. The sheds are used to store and maintain tractors and farm machinery. The development application was impact assessable and therefore public notification was required. The applicant advised that the public notifications were carried out in accordance with the Planning Act. A total of 23 properly made submissions objecting to the proposed development were received by council during this period. Key concerns raised within 23 submissions objecting to the proposed development are as follows. The potential impact of the proposed development being of industrial nature located within a rural area, the potential impact of noise emanating from the proposed development on the surrounding residences, the potential impact of odour emanating from the proposed development on the surrounding residences, and the potential impact of the generation of additional traffic on the road network. To ensure that the impact of the proposed development on the surrounding locality is minimised, development has been conditioned to provide for the following. Limiting the hours of operation to 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday to Friday, and 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays, with no audible noise permitted outside these hours or on a Sunday or public holidays. Limiting the number of employees to 4 persons at any one time, with at least 1 person to be the owner of the business. Limiting the number of vehicles on the site to no more than 10 vehicles at one time. The provision of adequate on-site car parking to contain the operations of the development within the site, and the requirement that noise and odour from the site must not emanate from the subject land to a degree that would create an environmental nuisance having regard to the Environmental Protection Act and the Environmental Protection Regulation. The application is generally consistent with the provisions of the Cassowary Coast Planning Scheme, and therefore the application is recommended for approval, subject to reasonable and relevant conditions. Happy to answer any questions, Council.
Thank you, Mr Jones. Any questions for the officer? Councillor Pervin.
Yes, Mr. James, just a quick one in relation to the conditions for the noise. What will council do to make sure that the noise is controlled and enforced by our council staff? Just in relation to some of the submissions that I've seen come through for it.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Pervin. So in regards to noise that emanates from the site, if we receive a complaint, council's office investigate that issue, and then we conduct noise testing. So what happens is that we get the operating of the business to basically operate the business as they would usually. We go to all the sensitive receptors and we take noise levels from those receptors. If they're seen to be exceeding the decibels outlined in the Environmental Protection Act, then council takes further action against the owner of the business. I would also note that when you're doing those noise testing results, you take into account a number of different things, such as background noise, and background noise does include road traffic noise.
You happy with that, Councillor Pervin? Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair. Mr James, how are you?
Thank you.
Can I just be assured that after a very thorough and informative deputation on this development, that council will undertake any necessary actions if any of the low impact industry standards are not met, in particular the conditions relating to the noise which you've just spoken about? Thank you.
Through the chair, Councillor Millwood, we have a number of different enforcement issues and that we deal with on a daily basis through our work here. If it seemed to be the fact that the operator of the business isn't complying with their conditions, we can issue a show cause notice under the Planning Act, and then we can go further enforcement through the Planning Environment Court. The reason why we place these conditions as we had is to limit the scale of development. So to limit the scale to a low impact industry type of use. If the operator of that business wants to exceed that, we'd be suggesting that he moves to a different site.
Any further questions for the officer? If not, would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 5.2, page 173, MCU for medium impact industry metal recycling facility, and Mr Jones will present this report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the chair, council has received an application for a material change of use for a medium impact industry, being a metal recycling facility. The application was prepared by RPS on behalf of New Life Metal Recycling, or Jack Thompson, as the owner of New Life Metal Recycling is, for the establishment of a medium impact industry use on land described as Part A, Lot 338 NR 7058, situated at Gundy Mill Road, Gundy Bend. The proposed development involved the following activities: the operation of a metal recycling facility, namely the dismantling, sorting and processing of end-of-life vehicles, and the sorting of scrap metal prior to on-sale for further processing. Establishing the necessary infrastructure for the proposed operation, including hard stand and covered area for the vehicle dismantling and processing. Provision of a vehicle depollution area for the removal of hazardous materials. The provision of a designated end-of-life vehicles storage area. Clearly defined entry and exit points. An on-site office and staff amenities, sufficient car parking, as well as landscaping and bunding. The site is located within the industry precinct. The surrounding area has a number of existing commercial and industrial businesses operating in close vicinity to the site. The application is code accessible and therefore public notification was not required. The subject site is located within the urban footprint and considered the application consistent with the intent of the regional plan and also the planning scheme. The application is recommended for approval subject to reasonable and relevant conditions. Council, with this one, I'd just like to highlight all the issues we have been receiving in regards to that site on the southern side of Innisfail. It's intended that the operator of this business will head into this site and continue to operate that business in an industrial area. So it does provide a very important operation for our town in the fact that it does recycle a lot of material that would otherwise go into landfill and be put into our dumps. So it does provide significant environmental benefits for us.
Thank you, Mr Jones. Any questions? Councillor Chewy.
Thank you, Mr Jones. Through the chair, obviously visual pollution has been an issue with this, so I'm assured that I'm seeking assurance that we will be monitoring that, because regardless of where it is, if it's ugly, it's ugly, and we need to be aware of that and the impact that that has on surroundings. So I just would like some guarantee that we will be on top of that as well, Mr Jones.
Through the chair, thanks, Councillor Chewy, for your question. So we've conditioned a bunded mound on one side of two sides of the development. We didn't condition it on the other side of the development because it faces cane paddock and it would and that's the way that it drains, but we've actually conditioned landscaping all around that entire site to grow up to 2 metres high, to actually, so you won't be able to see it from the highway or the other road. So.
Thank you. And we do have guarantee from the applicant that the landscaping will in fact be happening. And yes, and should it not, what would happen then?
Through the chair, very similar to what we spoke about with the previous application. So we'd send a show cause notice and progress through the Planning Environment Court in regards to those conditions.
Sorry. Thank you. As you stated, it's an important piece for waste, so we want to make it work. So thank you.
Correct. Thank you.
Councillor Baines.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. This is a great result. I mean, this business provides an essential service to our area, and it's great to see someone involved in the repurposing, recycling of these products. It's essential that we need it. Probably one question back to once they move off the site where they are now, would the business owner be up for repatriating that site, or does it fall to it'll obviously be tidied up and put back together again, which to take a little bit. But
that's right. Yeah. Through the chair, Councillor Baines, thanks for your question. We have actually sent letters to the owners outlining, depending on what the decision is today, moving forward, that they'll be responsible for cleaning up that site back to a satisfactory state, what it was before. So, thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Jones? Councillor Pervin.
Yeah, Mr. Jays, just one more question. In relation to the movement of the facility from one to the other, will they continue to operate until the new one's built? So it could be some amount of time. Do you know at this point in time, or have we sent enforcement out there to cease operations?
Through the chair, Councillor Pervin, thanks for the question. At the moment, they're operating on a very low scale. They can't bring any additional stuff in than what they have at the moment. So there's been other issues with other government agencies and departments which have chased them up in regards to enforcement and compliance. So they're well aware of the fact that there's no additional vehicles and that to be brought into the site at the moment, and there will just be a transition period between moving things from that site to the other site.
Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, this is just more a comment backing up on what Councillor Baines said. I think this is a really good outcome for the young man and giving him the opportunity to be able to continue with his business while he is doing his best bit for taking waste out of our landfill. Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Jones? Just a compliment for the planning department. This is actually the second recycling business that's been relocated from that area. Across the road on Rifle Range Road, there was one about 6 years ago that was causing environmental issues, and he's acted swiftly, relocated him to the old Grundy Mill site. So this is actually the second business that's going to be relocated off the highway onto the industrial estate. So great outcome.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Somebody move the recommendation, please. Councillor Pervin move. Councillor Chewy second. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
We move on to, thanks Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
We move on to item 5.3, page 307, delegations report, and Mr. Horton will present this report. Welcome, Mr. Horton.
Welcome, Council. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Council, good morning. Hope everyone's well. Council, the delegations report to finish the financial year, as well as how are we in the first 6 months of our calendar year. For planning, Council was 69 applications above last year for the financial year. So, yeah, still progressing not too badly in that fact for that, Council. So planning's pretty standard at the current time. On our dwelling approvals for the 6 month period from January to June, we're up and we're 39 above any of the previous 5 years, Council. So we've done 87 dwelling approvals, I should say, for the region, which is nice to see. So there was 10 more for the month from May to June. So overall, applications were at 286 for the 6 months. 85 above any of the previous 5 years, Council. So overall for the month, we had 44 approvals that we did, $6.1 million worth of work. Overall, from January to June, the total of all approvals is 37.9 million, Council, and dwelling total estimate is 24.3 million. So there's a lot of approvals and a lot of money that are going into those approvals, Council. So overall, for the financial year from July to June, for 2020 to 21, for that financial, our total estimated cost for all jobs is 40.4 million. And for the year before was 13.9. So you can see the difference between the financial year of last year, 1920 financial year to 2021, 13.9 to 40.4. So overall, for that financial year, as well as in the total approvals, we were up 124 approvals from last year in that financial year, Council. Approximately for the total, approximately 22.9 million between that financial year for our total dollar values on that in Council here, which is 66.9 million to 44 million on what we've done that year for our total approvals. So that one there is the difference between our total 66.9 and 44.08. The one before was the financial year was dwellings. Sorry, Council, I should have said that. So the total dollar figure for dwellings was 40.4 compared to 13.9 the year financial year before. So there's a considerable increase there in that component. I apologise for that. I should have explained that a lot better. Overall, for the month, we did 74 building inspections. We did 32 plumbing and drainage inspections. In our building record searches, Council, for this year, we've done 231 in the first 6 months, 71 above 2020, and progressing ninthly. If we would have understood back in 2019 when we had Mayfair come to town and buy up a lot of the properties between August and October in that period, we went from 152 to 300. So that was those couple of months. So we're at 231 this time for June. So there is some interest in our area in purchase of property, change in hands, rural properties right through to all of them, Council. Look, I'm happy to answer any other questions if Council has them.
Councillors, any questions for Mr Horton? Councillor Pervin.
Yes, Mr Horton. Just recently, I think you attended some pre-start meetings for some operational of subdivisions that were beginning. How'd you go with them, and are they under construction?
Through the chair, Councillor Pervin, we have done a pre-start for over at Innisfail Estate. That will proceeding once product and so forth is purchased. That'll be proceeding at any time soon. And we do have a pre-start meeting next Monday morning on another development down at Mission Beach for a third stage. So once we do that pre-start and get all the security bonds in place and the guys order their material, there's a bit of a lag time on materials around, especially concrete, pipe work and stormwater and sewer and those types of things. So once that's in place, but definitely the earthworks can commence. And we're working through with those two developments at the current time.
It's good to see, Mr Horton, as it's been some time since some subdivisions have come on the market, and it'd be good to see some new areas for development in the Innisfail and wider community.
Yeah.
Councillor Millwood.
Through the chair, I believe you and your team should be commended on the great work happening in the planning department and welcome the work that is taking place in the changing of our planning scheme. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. Councillor Chewy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd also like to acknowledge the work done by the planning scheme. I think it's very exciting. I think the upcoming August census will be interesting to see what it reveals and what's happening where. Just as a point of interest, and I mentioned it the other day, one of the real estate agents at Mission Beach made comment, and I'll just use an example of figures, that last year they sold 100 properties in 12 months, and this year they sold 200 properties in 6 months. And 14 of those were sight unseen. So there's definitely a shift to our area. So as I said, I think the census figures will be really interesting to see what who's going where. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chewy. Any further comment or questions? I just wanted to say it's a huge relief to see Innisfail Estate underway. I voted on the original development in 2005, has hit plenty of hurdles on the way. I believe one of the catalysts for this to happen now was the decision by the previous council to approve Work for Queensland funding for the pump station. The sewerage issue was always a major hurdle to that development going forward. So congratulations on that decision by the previous council. And I can't wait to see the 11 lots get underway on opposite Aluart Street.
Yeah, through the chair, definitely, Mr. Mayor, and hopefully it's just a start. Hopefully from the 11 we go into the 48 across the road and on the riverside, and you know, we still got another 600 there, so hopefully we stage it out accordingly, and yeah, we get the use of that 1.2 million that we spent on that pump station. Definitely, it was well worth it, and you know, I know there's been a lot of work, especially with Justin and Dave, and even David Trotter, our original director, you know, on flooding and drainage and those types of things, and you know, there's been a lot of effort over, you know, 15 years of seeking to get where we are today.
Okay, any further comment or questions? Somebody move the recommendation, please. Moved by Councillor Pervin, seconded by Councillor Millwood. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks. You, Mr. Horton.
Thanks, Councillor.
Councillors, we're up to general business, item 6. Any general business items? Councillor Pervin.
Yes, Mr. Sadler, this one for you. Myself and all the other councillors and the mayor, we attended the Innisfail Chamber of Commerce on Tuesday night at Brothers Lees Club, and we got on the track of Targa. I'd just like to know how things are progressing with Targa, where we're at, and a couple of queries that come out of them were advertising. It hasn't really been highly advertised in our area, and where are we going down that path to try and get it out to the people? And especially a lot of people have asked me about the circuit, since showing the map on the evening there. Where can they get access to that?
So through the chair, thank you for your question, Councillor Pervin. Just prior to me going on leave, I've just returned. There was a meeting with Targa and the CEO of Targa, and a number of our team are working on that with them. So they are going to do the release and the information going out. I think some of the information is just on hold at the moment, just purely because of COVID and whether that might change. So I have asked since returning that question, and I'll have an update for you next week.
Happy with that?
Very happy with that. Sorry, well, I've got you there. Speaking of COVID, we have had a positive case in the greater region of North Queensland. The Pandemic Committee, have we made any changes and adjustments to our operations and facilities in relation to this positive case? We're not shutting libraries, anything like that, are we, at this point in time?
So through the chair, we've been monitoring the situation since 2 days ago. We believe that the Deputy Premier has got an update at 10:30 today coming out. At this stage, we haven't made any changes. However, we have done some planning and making sure that we are ready. So we're in a lean forward mode, ready if we need to change something. So at this stage, there has been no change to our operations. However, depending on what the information is that the Chief Health Officer gives us, we'll make adjustments accordingly.
Councillor Millwood.
Yes, through the chair. I just wanted to make a mention that last Wednesday evening I attended a waste forum held at the Innisfail Disaster Centre. This forum was open to the general public for the purpose of educating the community on the ban of single-use plastics. The forum was well attended, and the message is that as of the 1st of September, all single-use plastics are banned. This includes items such as straws, stirrers, plates, bowls, cutlery, plastic chopsticks, and polystyrene food containers and cups. This is a national ban, and for further information on these bans and how you can transition to an alternative, you can go to the website, which is www.des.qld.gov.au, or you can go onto our council waste page. Also, please show your support tomorrow and Saturday at our 87th annual show, and make sure you get a fish burger from the Rotary stall. And also, there is some angst within the community with the recent positive COVID case at Mareeba. Our team is doing our best with the management, and our disaster management team are on keeping our community safe. Please, if you are required to self-isolate, it is extremely important that you do so. Do not go into the community, and please follow the guidelines set out by Queensland Health. This is a must. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millwood. Any further general business? Councillor Chewy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Following on from Councillor Millwood, just regarding the Tully Show, I would like to obviously acknowledge it. I love it. We all know that. And just acknowledge the the amount of work that goes in with the show committee. I mean, they are there all hours and they just work so hard. Obviously, with COVID now in our environment, there will be rules at the gate. There will be people assisting. You will have to check in. I just ask that people be patient, be kind to each other. Please don't try and push in, jump the queue. You will get in. There will be people there to assist you. Councillor Millwood is assisting. I will be assisting. And there will be monitors on the gate at all times to make sure that it's done properly and according to protocol. So we just ask that people be patient. You will get your fish burger, your chips and your ride on the Dodgems as well. So thank you. I've just got a bit more, Mr Mayor. I attended the TCT meeting the other night and I would just like to follow on a report from that. So the demand across the region has been extremely strong and continues to be so despite the COVID restrictions, and I think that's reflected in our RVs and caravan parks. Tropical coast tourism represented the region at the recent caravan and camping show in Brisbane with over 40,000 people walking through the gates. There was very strong interest in all aspects of the region. TCT, in conjunction with Tourism Tropical North Queensland, recently launched the new Drive North Queensland map with over 100,000 copies being distributed. And as I've already said, not everybody does Google. Some people like a bit of paper in their lap. A new Drive North Queensland website has also been developed and social media platforms established using the hashtag Drive North Queensland. A media campaign was launched in conjunction with Australian Geographic that includes features of the region with a reach of over 5.7 million people. TCT attended the largest tourism trade show in the Southern Hemisphere, Australian Tourism Exchange, held in Sydney in mid-June. The trade show provided the opportunity to meet with over 200 industry and media contacts to promote the region and its attractions. TCT, in conjunction with Cairns Central Shopping Centre, launched a 10-week staycation campaign, encouraging locals to visit the Cassowary Coast either for a day or hopefully an extended stay. The campaign included weekly competitions and giveaways, social media and digital media promotions. The campaign gained exposure to approximately 20,000 people per day, a reach of 44,000 people via Cairns social media platforms and assets. The campaign was also backed up with a series of print media advertising within the Cairns Post with a weekend circulation of over $80,000. And this one I'm very excited about. TCT has secured the extremely popular TV show Creek to Coast to visit our region to coincide with the Curramine Beach Fishing Comp in mid-September. The crew will film within the region with a dedicated 30-minute show. So 15 minutes will be about the fishing tournament and the rest of the other 15 will be on areas, within our Cassowary Coast. One coast, Cassowary Coast. Which will air in mid-November 21. The show has an average weekly audience of over 250,000 viewers, with a reach of over 800,000 people weekly via Facebook. So it's it's great exposure. So I think they've done well to secure that. And just one more piece, if I may. There have been issues around the signs at Cassowary Drive, Mission Beach, Alarish Road. So following requests from MBCA and myself, in February 21, Claude Outdoor was requested to make alterations to the road name panels. This particularly for emergency services, which was causing confusion on the TMR approved signage. A further request was made to this gentleman on the 14th of July. TMR removed the existing sign at the intersection of the Bruce Highway and Alarish Mission Beach Road in March 21. 20th of July, Claude Outdoor advised the road name panels on the TMR approved signage will be updated next week, and that was an email on Tuesday. So next week they should be updated on the signage should be changed. So that's all. And everybody, I wish have a great Tully show. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chewy. Any
yes, Mr. Chairman. Further on to the signage, what Councillor Chewy was just reporting on. There's been many complaints to council, but I'd just like to make people aware a lot of those signs on the highway are TMR signs, and council cannot legally touch those signs, but I know Mr. Sadler's in the process of making contact with Main Roads to clear that problem. Also, while I've got Mr. Sadler, I know you're passionate about the mountain bikes. Where are we in that space?
Through the chair, thanks Deputy Mayor for your question. The mountain biking project, which is in partnership with the state for Cardwell, the pump track and the other piece, and small length of trail and trailhead project is proceeding well. There has been some changes with our contact officer or project officer with the state, and just working through that at the moment. But my understanding from the team is that we're on schedule to continue undertaking that project as funded from the state and Commonwealth government.
Just to follow up on Councillor Barnes's comment and question, we've been getting a mountain of emails from Cardwell people saying that council's walked away from this project. You're categorically denying that. We're on track and we're working closely with all the stakeholders.
That's correct, through the chair, Mr. Mayor, that we're still working with the state in relation to the relief funding that came through, which was just short of $500,000 to do the trailhead and the pump track and a little bit of trail, yes.
That's exactly what we've been telling the people that have been protesting, but I guarantee you it's been a mountain of email trail attacking us because we've walked away, and you've just put that into clarity. Thank you. Any further general business?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, while I've got Mr. Sadler, I know you and I spoke recently about the great influx of pigs that we've seen with an extended wet season. I know you're onto it and you probably bring it to council in time. Just like to make rural landowners feel comfortable that the council is working with contractors and also the banana industry and cane industry in a combined, along with yourself.
Yeah, look, through the chair, Deputy Mayor, we continue to support our agri-businesses with pest management, as we have in the past. There has been some changes. Obviously, the 3-year project funded by the state with for Panama TR4 disease has come to an end. We do have to do our debrief and close up of that project yet, and that will be in the very near future. Obviously, only just finished as part of June 30. So, as I suppose this month and next month we'll get the project leaders together and obviously do that debrief and see what the learnings were, but also all the great and celebrating the great work that that project did deliver on.
And lastly, Mr. Mayor, my last one. It was one of the most positive conversations this week. I just happened to run into a couple of people I know that are right up in the making of that new movie, and they spoke so highly of our council teams. They rattled off names, but I'm not going to use those names in case I miss someone out. I think they will know who they are, from the planning to the asset to all the different teams. And they said they've worked with different councils around Australia, and no one has done it more efficiently and quick as this current council. So that's you can pat yourselves on the back for that. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Baines, good. Any further? Councillor Millwood. So further to that, I also have heard all good reports about the dealings with those companies and our council, and it's a credit to all of you guys and all the work that you've done. Very well done. Thank you. Councillor Pervin.
Yeah, just Mr. Sadler just touched on something there I was going to cover in my next one. I was on the weekend, I was up at Malanda having a look at the pump track up there, and my God, the amount of kids that were there using it at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, absolutely amazing. I'd just like to ask the CEO if he could take this on notice. If I know our staff have been talking about pump tracks for quite some time. As part of the Warina Lakes master plan, there's a scope for a pump track to be implemented, and I'd like to see this get over the line and be the first step in implementing part of the master plan. If we could have a bit of a talk to World Trails and get our staff to just take on notice, please, to have some planning done around different parts of our region in relation to getting some pump tracks over the line. Thanks.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman, happy to get information back to council on exactly that issue for discussion.
It'd be great if we could get some plans and maybe some costings.
Yeah.
Yep, would be excellent. Thanks very much, Mr. CEO.
Through the chair, Mr. CEO, I believe that we obviously had the by-election on Saturday, and I think the formal declaration will be Wednesday of next week. Can you provide any information or update? Obviously, we can't discuss names, but just a closing and any information that you might be able to help with. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yeah, we actually could discuss names because that's in the public domain. Already. Through you, Mr. Chairman, there are sufficient votes outstanding, as I understand it, such that mathematically it would be possible for two candidates to be elected. The poll is capable of being declared anywhere during the 10 days after the election. I suspect that it won't be declared until the 10 days are over, which takes us into about Tuesday of next week, I think. Is that the 27th? Around the 27th? Wednesday. Council is required immediately, well, not immediately, Council is required after the poll is declared to hold a meeting such that the oath can be taken by the incoming councillor. The councillor who is declared as having won the poll can't act as a councillor until they've been put through that process. I expect that I'll be calling a special meeting rather than letting it drag out to a general meeting, and we'll liaise with councillors to find out if their schedules are suitable such that a special meeting can be called very quickly after the declaration of the poll.
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Any further general business? Just got a couple I'd like to mention. Cassowary Coast is renowned for being a breeding ground for champion rugby league players, and a big shout out to Tom Flegler winning the State of Origin, and another rising star, Bailey Biondo Odo, a Bulldogs player, plays in the halves, scored his first try in NRL last weekend. The last one I want to touch on is the partnership with CMCA and their receipt box, the fortnightly tally, 6,198. So grey nomads do spend locally. That's the theme. Any further general business? No? Okay. We now move into item 7, confidential, and there's 3 items. Item 7.1, page 330, quarterly sundry debtors and outstanding rates. 7.2, page 335, sole supplier and suppliers of services of specialised or confidential nature. And item 7.3, page 344, in-kind support for the Innisfail Show Society and the Tully District Show Society. So we now need to close the meeting to the public. Would somebody move that we close? Councillor Toohey and seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors will now reopen the meeting to the public. Would somebody move that we reopen to live stream and the vote? Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Barnes. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Over to the CEO.
With your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'll just note that the reason that those three reports were dealt with during closed session in the case of the first report with regards quarterly sundry debtors and outstanding rates, it was deemed confidential pursuant to the regulations because it involved discussions relating to legal proceedings. In the case of the second one, sole supplier and suppliers of services of a specialised or confidential nature, likewise under the regulation, the matter was discussed in closed session because it related to negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving the local government. And in the case of the third one, it was closed insofar as it related to council's budget. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. We move on to item 7.1, page 330, the quarterly sundry debtor and outstanding rates, and Ms. Vick will present this report.
This report was presented for council information regarding the status of sundry debts and the rates and charges to the 30th of June, and also included legal action. The recommendation is that the report be received and noted.
Any questions for Ms. Vick? If not, would somebody move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Baines, seconded by Councillor Chewy. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Vick. We move on to item 7.2, page 335, sole supplier and supplier of services of a specialised or confidential nature. And Ms. Parish will present this report. Welcome.
Through the chair. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. For presentation today is Council's sole specialised and or confidential nature supply list. The local government stipulates that Council may enter into an agreement without first seeking other quotes or tenders if Council resolves that there is only one supply reasonably available, or if, because of the services of the nature of the services, it will be impractical to seek other quotes. In this year's review, we've removed 34 suppliers from the list and included 21 new suppliers. This was done by comparing other exceptions in the local government regulations, such as government agency suppliers, contracted suppliers, and suppliers who are accessible through LGA arrangements. Thank you.
Any questions for the officer? Councillor Barnes.
Yeah, just briefly. It says that council will decide otherwise by resolution. Do councillors get informed of how you're going with the process at all? Or you're going to do all that in-house and then report back?
Currently what happens is procurement pick up the previously approved supply list from the last year. We review that and then we circulate it to the internal users across the organisation, and then that list is reviewed for a second time by procurement, and then it's circulated to the CFO for review and endorsement prior to coming to council.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that was my question. Are councillors on that list that gets circulated? No.
Not sure what you mean, sorry.
Pardon?
Not sure what you mean.
Well, you said that then gets circulated internally. Are councillors on that list?
No, it's to employees.
Is it operational?
It's operational.
Councillor Barnes,
Thank you.
Any further questions? Yeah, Councillor Millwood.
Yes, through the chair, Ms. Parish. So I just wanted to make clear that of the ones that have been removed, those possibly can still be used if need be.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So those
okay.
suppliers can just be accessed by other exceptions which are listed in the local government
Thank
regulation.
you.
Any further questions? Somebody move the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Baines. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Parish.
Thank you, Ms.
And
Parish.
we move on to item 7.3, page 344, in-kind support, Innisfail and District Show Society, Tully and District Show Society, and Mr. CEO will present this report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. With your approval, council staff members are going through a process whereby we are improving our practices in respect of trapping data around in-kind support and excuse me, calculating the value of that in-kind support and subsequently reporting it to council. This will continue as with the inflection of time, and there'll be data ventilated as to the value of in-kind support for community organisations and community events on a much more regular basis. So this report deals with the Innisfail and District Show Society, the Tully and District Show Society. My recommendation is that, and there's a table attached to the report which provides a breakdown of the costings on the in-kind support. I apologise, it's a little difficult to read because of the size. Maybe that's just my eyes. The totals, though, in respect of the Innisfail Show Society, provide for a total in-kind support value of some $15,356.35, and the Tully Show Society $23,724. So it's my recommendation that Council confirm and endorse the provision of that in-kind support to those bodies.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Chewy.
Not a question, just gratitude that council do in fact support these events. They are very important for our community, and I think it's great that council, I also think it's great that we are now recording so that the community can see what efforts our teams do put in towards supporting the show. So I think this is a great piece by everybody, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I endorse those comments, Councillor Chewy. We pay higher rates in Cassowary Coast, and we often get approached by residents saying, where does the rate money go? Why are we paying? We need to show them where it goes, and this is going to be a great vehicle to put it out there. It used to be hidden under in-kind. Well, now it's going to be hidden under a dollar sign. I think it's great work by our staff. You know, we talk about a lot of good things that don't get communicated, and we've been told by other levels of government, Bob Catter, you've got to get your communications better. This is the best way to do it, a perfect vehicle. Get rid of in-kind, tell them what it is in dollar terms. Would somebody move the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Millwood, seconded by Councillor Chewy. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And I declare the meeting closed at 11:05. And I'm